Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. I've got a Dell Alienware here that I believe has a scrambled BIOS. The story from the customer was a little bit confusing as to exactly what happened, but suffice to say, my interpretation of it was it had done a BIOS update at some point, possibly through Windows Update, and then it had not been powered on or off correctly during that, or it had been interrupted, or the battery went flat. Doesn't matter. It seems that at some point it had done a BIOS update and now it's not working. It looks like the battery's flat, so let me just grab the charger. So we're expecting this thing to power on, but not post. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through just some basic troubleshooting, disconnecting internal batteries and things like that, to see if we can get anything out of it. But I suspect we're probably going to try and flash the BIOS chip. So, right, okay, it's power cycling. The power light came on and was fluorescing, then it's gone off. It's come back on. It looks like we're might be getting a flash code out of it now, actually. 1, 2. Okay, the power light is flashing red twice. I'll roll the intro while I do this, since we have observed the fault. So see you guys after the cut, and we'll start working on this. Cool, so that is now powered off. Do we have a BIOS battery in this thing? I don't see one anywhere. There's a fair amount of space underneath the motherboard, so there might be one on the other side. But a lot of modern laptops now don't run a BIOS battery. They just use the system battery. HP and Dell specifically do this. So I don't think we're going to have a BIOS battery in there. So by disconnecting the main battery, that should do the equivalent of a BIOS reset. And while I'm here, I'm also just having a look around. We're looking at the back of the motherboard here. Because all the heatsink and everything is on the other side. So it looks like we're going to have to take the motherboard out in order to get to the BIOS chip, which is a pity. I was kind of hoping that it would be visible on top, and I might be able to zap it off with the hot air without having to take the laptop to bits. Alright, I think that's enough time. Let's plug that in. I won't bother putting the back cover on. And we'll give it the charger. And let's see if that's done anything. Right. Fan spin. The power light is RGBing. So we're expecting at least 1 or 2 power cycles. Okay, that just went to 2 red flashes again straight away. Is it going to do that again? Yeah, okay. I'm going to see if I can find out what those red flashes are. Let's hold down the power button. Right, according to an iFixit forum post on a different Alienware model, the power button blinking red twice, that indicates a system board problem, BIOS and ROM failure, so scrambled BIOS. So yeah, the symptoms we're seeing match what we were told was wrong with it. So, okay, I'm going to take the motherboard out. Because in order to get to the BIOS chip, or to see if there is an RTC battery in there, or to do anything else, we're going to need the motherboard out. So let's start stripping, folks. It's just suddenly occurred to me that this thing probably actually has a BIOS recovery system on it, because it's a modern Dell laptop. So I'm just having a quick look through this page here. I just Google searched Dell Alienware BIOS recovery, and we've got a couple of things. This is last modified May 2025, so this is modern. So there are a couple of systems listed here. So I think we're going to quickly fly down these first, because this will theoretically be less destructive than programming the BIOS chip. Right, fix BIOS corruption on Dell computers with BIOS recovery methods. This article applies to an Optiplex 5050. Okay, change product. So apparently if we press and hold Control Escape on the keyboard while it turns on, we should get something. Let's try that. Right, press and hold Control Escape until the keyboard backlight lights up. Right, we're onto our red flashing power light. Keyboard backlight has not come on. I'm going to let go because it's reached a steady state. Okay, that looks like that didn't do anything. Right. Next instructions are verify the laptop is turned off and disconnect the AC adapter. Press and hold Control Escape, connect the AC adapter. Hold Control Escape until the keyboard backlight lights up. And we've got a flashing red power light again. It's not very bright under the cameras, so I'll tell you when it happens. Apparently on some computers without a keyboard backlight, you look at the caps lock LED, but I find it hard to believe that a modern Alienware doesn't have a backlight. That doesn't appear to be doing anything. I'm giving up on that. Dell tablet, no. Convertible or detachable Dell, no. No. Okay, I'm calling that a wash. I'm taking this thing apart. Let it not be said that I didn't explore those options. I'm interested if anyone has more experience doing that, but I never seem to have any luck with these kinds of recovery sequences. Like when I've had HP laptops with scrambled BIOSes in the past, people have been like, oh, you got to push Windows B and it will restore from USB and stuff like that. I'm like, that's never worked for me. So I have a suspicion that once you get to, the laptop presumably has already been past the point of being able to self-recover. The same thing can sometimes happen with desktop motherboards. Desktop motherboards, even if they have BIOS flashback, you can get to the point where just even BIOS flashback doesn't seem to work. Even though, by all accounts, theoretically it should work under any conditions, because BIOS flashback and other such methods, the functionality for that is hardware in the motherboard. So even if your BIOS chip was just completely blank, it should still be able to do something. But yeah, as I say, in my experience, BIOS recovery methods, they're a bit hit and miss. I'm not saying they're a waste of time. You should definitely try them out, which is why I gave that a go. But just don't be surprised if it doesn't work, basically. Right, lots of heatsink on this side. Weird motherboard layout. There's not much on the... Yeah, weird motherboard design. A lot of it is on the back, except for the actual silicon. But then, yeah, I don't know. It's a double-sided board. I'm waffling. Right, straight away, I'm seeing a WinBond chip here. That looks like a BIOS chip, but also we've got a GPU here. So there's likely to be a couple of candidate BIOS chips, and this one might be for the GPU. So we're going to have to take that heatsink off so we can check if there's any others. So let's keep going a bit deeper. Okay. There's another EEPROM. So I'd bet money that's our VGA BIOS, because that's right next door to the GPU. So yeah, I think that one's got to be the main system BIOS. Right, we'll just freeze that on the screen for a moment. That's a Winbond 74 M12 JWS IQ. I'm going to touch up the joints with some fresh solder just to make it a bit easier to flow. And this is the point where a lot of people are probably going, why don't you use a clip to reprogram with? And the answer to that is that it's just easier to take the chip off the board. Like, I've been looking into this and asking about this lately, and people are just like, oh, you need to get, if you get this specific clip, it works just fine. And, oh, but if it does this, you have to do this. And if it does this, you have to do that. And, you know, you might have to set your programmer to do this. And I'm just like, yeah, or I could just take the chip off the board. I've got a video planned for where I look into this for a desktop board, because those have SPI headers on them where you have direct access to program in circuit, and I want to explore what it takes to actually do that. But even already, just looking for the cable and stuff like that, I'm just like, I do not understand why anyone bothers with clips. I know there's a lot of skilled YouTubers out there that are more talented than me who use clips and do this flashing in circuit, but honestly, I don't understand why. This is a I mean, to be honest, this is a favorable example for me because, bam, it's off the board. Like, how hard was that? There are certain instances where the chip is a ball ache to take off of the board, and it's not that simple. However, certainly, times like this, I do not understand why anyone bothers with in-circuit flashing. Right, I'll stick this in my socket adapter here. You can also solder it onto a breakout board. Right, my CH341A programmer has gone walkabout, so that will show up at some point. In the meantime, I'm going to plug this into my RT809F programmer. Now, according to, I Google searched the chip number, and according to a bad caps thread, this can be detected as a this is detected as a couple of other chips, and it is a 1.8 volt chip. So I'm putting it onto a 1.8 volt adapter, which I shall then plug into here. So there's our little stack, and we'll now connect that up and start the software for it. Okay, let's smart identify the chip. And that's picked up as a W25Q128F. Yeah, and that tallies with what other people were saying they were using it with. So I'm going to go ahead and do a read on that. Read error, operation aborted. Nope, still doesn't like it. Okay. I'm going to look super hard for my CH341A because I've been having generally a pretty good success rate with that thing lately. Right. Whoop. Let's put you in here instead. What was this? A 25 series. Right, let's plug this thing in. CH341A is balls slow, but it gets a lot of love from the community because it's cheap. So, it's still a valid option. And once again, I shall detect. W25Q128, sure, let's try it. And give me a read. There we go. That says it's got a successful read and we've got data. So I don't know what was up with my RT809F. I want to use it more often because it's a much faster programmer than the CH341A. But I don't know. It feels like it's out of date or out of fashion, whereas the CH341A just remains relevant because it's cheap enough that everyone keeps writing updates for it. And that seems to be one of the reasons why there's two types of BIOS programmers. There's the ultra cheap ones that everyone loves because they're really cheap, and then there's the really expensive ones that are really good but also kind of expensive. So anyway, cool. Let's save our dump because we always save our dumps. I will call this XPS. What is this board number? This is an LA-K453P. Okay, so we've saved our BIOS dump. So whatever happens, whatever we do to this BIOS chip now, we can always restore it to how it was when we began. So if we make a hash of it or we abort the mission, we can just roll back to where we started from. Now we've got to find a replacement BIOS for it. Let's start with the Dell website. So on a quick Google search, it looks like this is an R5, not an R4. So let's pull up the Dell website for that. So, wow, I can play Darktide on this. Imagine playing 40k instead of fantasy. Let's see. And let's reset my zoom because the website is breaking. Ratings and reviews. Now we want support. There we go. And I want drivers and downloads. And I want a BIOS. Okay, so this is going to download an EXE. So let's download this EXE and see if we can extract a usable BIOS image from this. So if we double click on this, we'll just try and run it and see what happens. HP are generous enough that they will let you extract the BIOS image from the executable file. This one I'm expecting to just, yeah, there we go, I was about to say, is just going to spit out an error saying you're not on the right kind of computer. So so the first thing I'm going to try is I'm going to right click on the EXE and I'm going to try and open it with 7-zip. So I've got 7-zip installed. I'm just going to do open archive and let's see if we've got some kind of useful payload in here. So there's this 0 file that's 28.7 megabytes. That doesn't look particularly useful to me. This is all installer stuff, so no. That doesn't look very helpful. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to double click on this again. And I'm going to sit on the error message when it pops up. Okay, so while our error message is open, I'm going to open Task Manager. And I'm going to select this program, this BIOS update program. And I am going to open file location. And this is pulled out where the file extracted to in the temp directory. So here's where that installer is running from in the Windows temporary folder. And if we have a look in here, we should find something a bit more interesting. I'll just sort by size. isflash.bin. Okay, that looks promising. 18.9 megabytes. Bit of a weird file size. Not convinced, but we could have a look at that file. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy that out. I'm going to put that in my working folder as a point of interest. And I'm going to open UEFI tool. And we're going to see if we can open that binary file in UEFI tool. All right, that's looking promising. We've got a BIOS image in here. So this is a capsule file, but inside the capsule file is a full image. So let's extract this image. I'll right click on that and do extract as is. And I'm going to put that as, we'll put that just as del.bin. And that gives me a file size of 16.384 megs, which is the same as our dump file. So now we've extracted a file that is the correct size for the chip we want to flash it to. Now we're cooking. That's our BIOS. So now we have a clean BIOS that is ready to use. The only thing that we're missing here is serial data. So I might just see if we can do something about that. I'm going to have a quick rummage around in here and see if I can find some serial data. Okay, right. I've done some rummaging and I couldn't find anything, but I'm not an expert on this. I don't think Dell laptops super care if the serial number isn't set, so I'm going to roll forward without the serial number. If anyone knows where it is, do post down in the comments down below. That way, if someone else is trying to do this, they can check the comments and they might be able to see where the serial number data is located, and then they can extract the serial number and put it in. In an ideal world, what I would do is I would search the dump file for the known serial number. But I don't know what the serial number of this laptop is because I think the bottom of the laptop has been de-stickered. So I'm going to proceed without the serial number. It shouldn't matter theoretically. So let's move on. So what I'm going to do now, let's close UEFI tool, and I'm going to open my clean image. So here's my del.bin image, and I'm going to write this back to the BIOS chip. So we're going to make sure that we've selected all options: off, protect, erase, blank, check, write, verify, and let's go ahead and write it. Go. Programming complete. So let's get our chip out of our programmer. And we'll stick it back on the board, and let's see if that's done the job. And I'll make sure the chip is the right way around. Yep, so we've got a line on the silk screen there, which corresponds to the dot. So that goes that way around. Hot air! When you're soldering these back on, just watch all these resistors around the side. Really easy to knock them sideways, and yeah, you need all of them. Why is that being sticky? Bottom left, there we go. That looks good to me. And I think I'm going to go full send with this and do the thermal paste as well. If I really don't think a device is going to work, I usually won't bother doing the thermal paste until I've seen that it's, well, working. And then I'll put on some fresh paste. But I don't know. By all accounts, this should work. We have every reason to believe that the BIOS was scrambled. Looking good. So I'm going to stick this back in the chassis, and then we'll turn it on and see if anything has happened. Right, I think we have enough for an attempt, so I'll connect the battery. Let's flip that over. Plug in the charger. And here we go. We've got fans. Power cycled, fans again. Power cycled, fans again. And again. Okay, that's 4 power cycles. Okay, power cycle like 6 times. Jesus Christ. Oh. Alright. Please don't scream at me. Ah! It's doing something. Okay. What the hell is that? That's the display test? Oh. Okay. Okay, the system is running, but we have no display output. Let's plug in a HDMI cable. Okay. We have a Windows boot. Do we have graphics here? Like, that looked really scary, what we were seeing on the screen. But it might have a damaged panel. So, let's see. Yeah, we got an RTX 3070 there. Okay, so it started up, but I've got no display output. We had some horrible looking flickering there. And I've made some observations. So number one, that siren beep that we had before, that was saying there was no boot device found. But I think we have a busted display panel on this laptop. The other giveaway was we had a siren beep, we saw the scrambled display briefly, and then I put an SSD in and it just immediately booted up Windows and gave Windows noises. So I then plugged in the HDMI cable and hey ho, we've got HDMI output and a detected graphics card. So we've no reason to believe that there's any issues with the GPU or anything like that. So this thing seems to work. It just seems to have a bad display panel in it. So I guess I need to talk to the customer and find out what's going on there. So I think this has a knackered LCD panel on it, and I've just gone and spoken to the customer about that, because obviously this is going to cause a delay because I'd need to order a replacement panel. And they said, oh yeah, no, that panel has been flaky forever. I was going to replace it anyway. So I was just like, okay then. And they're like, yeah, I'll come and get it. And I'm like, okay, needs a new panel, but yeah, it does start and run. So yeah, there we go. That's it. We've got a working laptop. Bit of an odd end to this one. I was kind of hoping to plug in a new panel just so we could be like, there we go, and we're full circle. However, you've seen it gives an output over HDMI. We saw the briefly garbled display. We know it works. So if the customer's happy to replace the screen themselves on it, then cool. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time, I guess. Bye.